Hi, we'll start in about 45 seconds. Just had to get on. Good evening. It's 7 o'clock here in the northeast of the United States, and this is the Tibet Center, Kunchab Tardu Ling, a Buddhist meditation and study center located in New York City and northern New Jersey, under the direction of His Eminence Chabje Ling Rinpoche, also under the direction of Rato Kensa Tupten Lunda, also known as Venerable Geshe Nicholas Vreeland. This is our twice weekly presentation of the Buddha Dharma. Specifically, we're on studying the LAM CHEN, or Stages on the Path to Enlightenment by Tsong-kha-pa. Some housekeeping business. If there's a problem with sound or picture, text me or Mr. Smith. All the prayers we say are on the Tibet Center website in the FAQ section. If you have anyone who has passed away recently and you wish us to pray for them, put their names in the chat box as soon as possible, the comment section, whatever you call it these days. Who knows? You know where it is. And what else? This program will be on if you want to tag it, we're trying to tag it for archival purposes. It'll be chapter 14, Lamrim Volume 3. And prior to that, some instructions on bodhicitta, establishing bodhicitta from Kunshang Jamela. Never mind. Words of my perfect teacher. I forgot the word. Kunsang Lame Jalung. Kunsang Lame Jalung. I forgot how to pronounce it from Geshe Jamspal. Patrul Rinpoche's wonderful, earth-shattering presentation. We'll be doing a lot of that in the next few weeks. So that's the topic of the tonight's class, and that's how you would classify this particular unit. So we have a lot to do, and so we'll start. Prayer for the spreading of the teachings throughout the length and breadth of the West. By the force of the blessings of the non-fallacious three precious gems, and of the truth of our pure selfless wishes, may the precious Buddhist teachings flourish and spread to the expanse of all areas throughout the length and breadth of the West. For all the people living here together with their near ones who have engaged in the teachings and have faith and respect for them, may all conditions adverse to their practice of the pure Dharma be dispelled, and an excellent collection of favorable conditions increase like the waxing moon. And especially for those who work on methods to accomplish the flourishing and spreading of the victorious one's teachings, which are the source of benefit and happiness, may they never be oppressed by masses of interference and adverse conditions, and may this spontaneously happen just as we have hoped and wished. The Heart Sutra. Thus have I heard once. The Blessed One was dwelling in the royal domain of the Vulture Peak Mountain, together with a big gathering of great monks and great bodhisattvas. At that time, the Blessed One entered the samadhi which examines the dharmas, called profound illumination, and at the same time, noble Avalokiteshvara, the bodhisattva, Mahasattva, looking at the profound practice of transcendent knowledge, saw the five skandhas in their natural emptiness. Then, through the inspiration of the Buddha, Venerable Shariputra said to Avalokiteshvara, how should those noble ones learn who wish to follow the profound practice of transcendent knowledge? And Avalokiteshvara answered, Venerable Shariputra, whoever wishes to follow the profound practice of transcendent knowledge should look at it like this, seeing the five skandhas in their natural emptiness. Form is empty, emptiness itself is form, emptiness is not separate from form. Form is not separate from emptiness. In the same way, feeling, discriminating, awareness, compositional factors, and consciousness are empty. Thus all the dharmas are empty and have no characteristics. They are unborn and unceasing. They are not impure or pure. They neither decrease nor increase. Therefore, since there is emptiness, there is no form, no feeling, no discriminating awareness, no compositional factors, no consciousness, no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, no appearance, no sound, no smell, no taste, no sensation, no objects of mind, no quality of sight, no quality of hearing, no quality of smelling, no quality of tasting, no quality of sensing, no quality of thought, no quality of mind consciousness. There are no nidanas from ignorance to old age and death, nor their wearing out. There is no suffering, no cause of suffering, no ending of suffering, and no path, no wisdom, no attainment, no non-attainment. Therefore, since there is no attainment, the bodhisattvas abide by means of transcendent knowledge. And since there is no obscurity of mind, they have no fear. They transcend falsity and pass beyond the bounds of sorrow. All the Buddhas who dwell in the past, present, and future by means of transcendent knowledge fully and clearly awaken to unsurpassed, true, complete enlightenment. Therefore, the mantra of transcendent knowledge, the mantra of deep insight, the unsurpassed mantra, the unequaled mantra, the mantra which calms all suffering should be known as truth, for there is no deception. In transcendent knowledge, the mantra is proclaimed Tayata Om Gate Gate Paragate Parasam Gate Bodhisoha. O Shariputra, this is how Bodhisattva Mahasattva should learn profound transcendent knowledge. Then the Blessed One arose from that samadhi and praised the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Avalokiteshvara, saying, Good, good, O son of noble family, profound, transcendent knowledge should be practiced just as you have taught, and the Tathagatas will rejoice. When the Blessed One had said this, Shariputra and Avalokiteshvara, that whole gathering in the world with its gods, humans, asuras, and gandharvas, their hearts full of joy, praised the words of the Blessed One. So, refuge and bodhisattva vow, which we recite 3 times. With the wish to free all beings, I shall always go for refuge to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha until I reach full enlightenment. Enthused by wisdom and compassion today in the Buddha's presence, I generate the mind for full awakening for the benefit of all sentient beings. As long as space remains, as long as sentient beings remain, until then may I too remain and dispel the miseries of the world. With the wish to free all beings, I shall always go for refuge to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha until I reach full enlightenment. Enthused by wisdom and compassion today in the Buddha's presence, I generate the mind for full awakening for the benefit of all sentient beings. As long as space remains, as long as sentient beings remain, until then may I too remain and dispel the miseries of the world. With the wish to free all beings, I shall always go for refuge to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha until I reach full enlightenment. Enthused by wisdom and compassion today in the Buddha's presence, I generate the mind for full awakening for the benefit of all sentient beings. As long as space remains, as long as sentient beings remain, until then may I too remain and dispel the miseries of the world. May all the pains of living creatures ripen solely upon myself, and through the might of the Bodhisattva Sangha, may all beings experience happiness. May the teachings which are the sole medicine for suffering and the origin of every joy be materially supported and honored and abide for a very long time. I prostrate to Manjagosha, through whose kindness wholesome minds ensue, and I prostrate to my spiritual masters, through whose kindness I develop. And now we do the prayer for the swift return for Rato Chöngpa Rinpoche, written by His Holiness on the website. Exalted wisdom of all victors gathered in a drop, sole refuge manifest in the form of the one wearing saffron robes, Guru Lozang Tubuang Dorje Chang, please bear witness here today that our prayers may be fulfilled. We beseech the great torch of doctrine, accomplishing from long ago the vast waves of aspirational prayers, Lord of speech of the Victor Losang's teachings, spreading them to the ends of the earth by means of explanation and practice. Though holding the commitment, I will invite all beings to be my guests in unsurpassed great awakening. Yet you have withdrawn the activities of the form body that serves the welfare of others. Is that worthy of the supreme among beings, the Bodhisattvas? Though impossible for you till cyclic existence's end to abandon your commitment to liberate all beings, we beseech the new son of Nirmanakaya to swiftly return from the realm of Dharmakaya, brought forth by Bodhicitta, drawn by 7 steeds. Having reached the far limits of scholarship, religious life, and goodness, please come swiftly as an unrivaled supreme emanation, full holder of the sage's teachings and wish-fulfilling jewel. Return as the glory of Losang Tenpe. Magnificent truth of the 3 precious jewels, Mahakala, Karma Yama, and Srimata Devi, and the ocean of Dharma protectors, may you spontaneously fulfill our wish, the swift blossoming of the reincarnation's fresh moonlight face. So, as usual, we have a ton of stuff to do, so you won't be bored. Okay, we're getting out. I always check the comment box to see if someone's alive. I don't know if it's going out or not. But Darren will tell me. So, pardon me. Iced espresso. So tonight, the special thing. This is a very, very good book. Kunsang Lame Jalung, The Words of My Perfect Teacher by Patrul Rinpoche, Patrul Rinpoche. Very interesting person, very powerful Lama. In the tradition, the Nyingma tradition of Longchenpa to Jigme Lingpa, to his teacher, and then to himself, and then out to everybody. I'll read a little from the translator's introduction. We're going to stay with this book on and off through the next few months because there's a lot in there. There's a lot on Tantra. There's a lot on a lot of stories which you might be interested in. At the end of the day, you're tired, you like to hear a story. So, very good introductory material. And also, it balances the highly technical part of the Lamrim that we're in now. You can't do a whole hour of that. We probably could, right? But as an old guy, I can't. So, but anyway, this is necessary. So enough blah, blah, blah. So the translators, Padmakara group, I think, yes, beautiful work. Make some interesting comments. Patrul Rinpoche's work is not a treatise for experts, but a manual of practical advice for anyone sincerely wishing to practice the Dharma. He wrote in a style that could speak as easily to rough nomads and villages as to lamas and monks. He is the 19th century, basically, early 19th, I think to 1875, 18, whatever, the dawn of the modern era. So he's somewhat modern, you know. In fact, the translator goes on, in fact, he claimed that it was not really a literary composition at all, but that he had simply set down the oral instructions of his own teacher as he himself had heard them. We'll speak about that. The particular magic of the book is that we feel that we are Patrul Rinpoche's own students, listening to his heartfelt advice based on the oral tradition that he received from his own teacher and the deep experience of years of practice. He explains everything we need to know to practice the teachings, and also, often with devastating irony, the many mistakes that can be made on the spiritual journey. The language veers from high poetry to broad vernacular. Each point is illustrated by numerous quotations, down-to-earth examples from daily life, and a wealth of stories. It is very interesting. Some of these stories go back to the very origins of Buddhism in the 6th century BC and beyond. Some are drawn from the extraordinary lives of the great masters of India and Tibet. Some concern the doings of the ordinary folk of Patrul Rinpoche's native Kham. Patrul Rinpoche was famous for the direct way he probed the depths of his students' minds. He was a firm believer in Atisha's dictum, the best spiritual friend is the one who attacks your hidden faults. Be your own best spiritual friend. Look for your hidden faults. Get rid of them. Although his work is clearly adapted to his particular audience, with a little effort of transposition, we can see that human nature remains remarkably the same. This is true, very true. Remarkably the same, regardless of time and culture. I mean, you can read the Buddhist Sutras, the same thing, little stories. Oh, I see what went on in those days. Same as today. We feel that the recesses of our own character are exposed, and we are forced to question our own habits of thought and open our minds to new possibilities. What's wrong with that? In his concluding chapter, the author describes his work as follows, and here's a quote from Zapotro himself. I'm in the introduction part, Roman numeral 32. In writing down these instructions, Patrul says, I have not been guided primarily by aesthetic or literary considerations. My main aim has simply been to record faithfully the oral instruction of my revered teacher in a way that is easy to understand and useful to the mind. How kind. Wow. I have done my best not to spoil them by mixing in my own words or ideas. On separate occasion, my teacher also used to give numerous special instructions for exposing hidden faults, and I have added whatever I have been able to remember of these in the most appropriate places. He says, do not take them as a window through which to observe others' faults, but rather as a mirror for examining your own. Look carefully within yourself to see whether or not you have those hidden faults. If you do, recognize them and take them out of their hiding place. Correct your mind and set it at ease on the right path. These things hidden create turmoil, even though we don't want to acknowledge that they're. Get rid of them. I'll leave this paragraph also from the translators. For Vajrayana Buddhism, enlightenment is not a remote ideal, but something which, with the appropriate methods and a supreme effort, can be achieved here and now, in this life, in this very life. In Tibet's living wisdom tradition, every scripture, every meditation practice and training for the mind is passed on from teacher to student and then internalized until it becomes an integral part of that person's experience. One of the words for spiritual practice in Tibetan is nyamlen, literally taking into experience. Someone who can be considered a lineage holder, a truly qualified spiritual teacher, must have actually attained realization. Patrul Rinpoche held a continuous line of transmission coming down from the Buddha himself. This lineage has been passed on unbroken from one realized teacher to the next until the present day. So we'll say a bit about his background. The Nyingma school, to which Patrul Rinpoche belonged, and which is the oldest tradition in Tibetan Buddhism. It means old. Nyingma is old. And there are two kinds of transmission. There is the Kama, or oral lineage, passed on from teacher to student over the centuries, and there is the miraculous, direct lineage of Terma, or spiritual treasures. These were hidden in the 8th century by Padmasambhava and his great woman disciple Yeshe Tsogyal, to be discovered in later ages at the appropriate moment. The words of my perfect teacher is an explanation of the preliminary practice of the Longchen Nyingtik, the heart essence of the vast expanse, a spiritual treasure discovered by Rigzin Jigme Lingpa, who's 1729-1798. We won't go on about that lineage, etc., except to say on page Roman numeral 34, Jigme Lingpa first practiced and mastered the teachings he had discovered and then passed them down to a few close disciples who were capable of becoming pure holders of the doctrine. One of these was Patrul Rinpoche's teacher, Jigme Gyalwai Nyugu, and this is the perfect teacher that Patrul Rinpoche is referring to. My perfect teacher, Jigme Gyalwai Nyugu, who, after spending a considerable time with Jigme Lingpa in central Tibet, returned to Kham, the eastern region of the country. There he undertook the practice of what Jigme Lingpa had taught him, living on a remote mountainside in a mere depression in the ground without even a cave for shelter. These are high yogis. I mean, don't run out now and dig a hole against it. No. I'm being glib. All right. And with only wild plants for food. Well, at least it was organic, right? He was indifferent to comfort and convenience, determined to let go of all worldly considerations and concentrate on the goal of ultimate realization. Gradually, disciples gathered around him, living in tents on the windswept hillside. One of these was the young Patrul, who received from him no less than 14 times the teachings contained in this book. Subsequently, Patrul also studied with many other great lamas of the day, including the highly unconventional Do-Chensei Yeshe Dorje, who directly introduced him to the nature of the mind. Throughout his life, Patrul Rinpoche emulated the uncompromising simplicity of his master. Although he had been recognized in his child as an incarnate Lama or Tulku, his name is an abbreviation of Palje Tulku, and would normally have had a high position in a monastic establishment. Rather, he put that down. He said he spent his life wandering from place to place, camping in the open and in the guise of an ordinary beggar. Put all that aside. A lot of his habits echo our teacher, Chungarato, walked around normally, friend to even the winos on the street. If he was offered gold or silver, we're talking about Patrul now, if he was offered gold or silver, he would also just leave it lying on the ground, thinking that wealth was only another source of trouble. Even when he had become a famous teacher, he would travel around underground, unrecognized rather, living in the same simple and carefree manner. There is even a story of a Lama he met on his travels who, thinking he was a good fellow who might benefit from such an extraordinary teacher, taught him this very text. not knowing that he's writing. On another occasion, he traveled with a poor widow, helping her to cook and to take care of her children, carrying them on his back. When they arrived at their destination, Patrul excused himself, saying he had something important to do. The woman heard that the great Patrul Rinpoche was teaching at the monastery. She went there to watch and was amazed to see her traveling companion on the throne instructing the vast assembly. At the end of the teaching, he asked that all the offerings be given to her. To his students, he was immensely kind, but also immensely tough. Tough but fair. Here we go. He treated beggars and kings in exactly the same way. What did Ben Franklin say? A great man neither bows to an emperor or steps on an ant. We're going to talk about equanimity shortly. In all situations, his only interest was to benefit others, and he would always say whatever would be most useful, regardless of social niceties. So, who was texting me? Is there a problem with the thing? Oh no, it's just chit chat. Okay, good. So let's take a taste, and we'll be taking many tastes of. We're going to the section on bodhicitta. Here it is. I have it marked nicely. Good for me. I like this something normal. This is chapter 2, page 195, and this is the book again. The Words of My Perfect Teacher. I don't know if it has a different cover now, but it's probably exactly the same word for word. By the great Padmakara group, forwards by Dalai Lama and Dugel Chensei Rinpoche. The heavies endorsed it. And I think for a person who knows too much about Buddhism, is turned off by all this heavy scholarship, this is something to keep around the house. Because you could take little bites of this, the best way to learn, small bites. As a 2-minute look at a paragraph here and there, it hits the mark. And it's very nutritious. It's like a tasty treat that's not sweet or crappy, but good, high protein snack. All right, we'll put it there. So, page 195, Arousing Bodhicitta. He's going to take us through the steps of Bodhicitta. We'll have to do the whole thing tonight. We don't have time. But we'll be tasting it throughout the next few weeks. The chapter starts with a little verse of praise to the Guru. Through your great wisdom, you have realized nirvana. Through your great compassion, you willingly embrace samsara. Through your skill and methods, you have realized that they are no different. Oof. Peerless teacher, at your feet I bow. Now there's a dedication. I'll say it again. Through your great wisdom, you have realized nirvana. Through your great compassion, you willingly embrace samsara. Through your skill and methods, you have realized that they are no different. Peerless teacher, at your feet I bow. Shabla, so what that? All right. So this chapter has 3 sections: training the mind, the 4 boundless qualities, arousing bodhicitta, etc. So, training the mind, the 4 boundless qualities, and what are they? The 4 immeasurables. It's another way of saying the 4 immeasurables. Page 195. The 4 boundless qualities are boundless love, compassion, sympathetic joy, that's a nice way of putting it, and impartiality. Love is usually dealt with first, but when we practice the 4 one after the other as a training for the mind, we should start by developing impartiality. Sometimes we call it equanimity. All beings remain in equanimity, but superstitious conception of this or that. Equanimity, impartiality. Why? Otherwise, whatever love, compassion, and sympathetic joy we generate, Patrul says, will tend to be one-sided and not completely pure. You got to prepare the ground. You prepare the canvas doing your painting with gesso or whatever you do. The preliminaries, the good foundation, etc. and so on. Let me shut up. He goes on. In this case, therefore, we begin with the meditation on impartiality. So page 196, meditation on impartiality, as promised. Impartiality, or Tang-yom, T-A-N-G, second word N-Y-O-M in Tibetan, means giving up, Tang, our hatred for enemies and infatuation with friends, getting rid of that, and having an even-minded, Nyom, attitude towards all beings. So give up attachment and hostility and positively develop an even-minded thing, free of attachment to those close to us and aversion for those who are distant. Just like the prayer, the 4 boundless, the 4 measurable states. Okay. As things are now, we are very attached to those we think as a part of our own group. Father and mother, relatives, and so on, our crowd. Republicans, no. That's the way people think, our little group. Us and them, what good is that? He goes on. While we feel an intolerable aversion towards our enemies and those associated with them, this is a mistake and comes from a lack of investigation. Corrected. In former lives, those whom we now consider our enemies have surely been close to us, even ever lovingly at our side, looking after us with goodwill and giving us unimaginable help and support. Conversely, many of those whom we now call friends have certainly been against us and done us harm. As we saw in the chapter on impermanence, this is illustrated by the sublime Katyayana. I won't go that story because he references a person who was reborn and his dog, which was his mother, is eating something. It's on and on. He'll come around to it again. We don't have time to go through it. Another example is the story of Princess Pemesel. This is interesting. You might like it. Daughter of the Dharma king Trison. When she died at the age of 17, her father went to ask Guru Rinpoche, Padmasambhava, how such a thing could happen. Hey, I took out insurance. How? I would have thought, the king says, I would have thought that my daughter must have been someone with pure past action, said the king. She was born as the daughter of King Trisong Detsen, who was considered an emanation of Manjushri, not just an ordinary king, Dharma king. So she met all of you translators and panditas who are like real Buddhas. So how can it be that her life was nevertheless so short? It was not all because of any pure past deed that the princess was born as your daughter, the master replied. Padmasambhava is talking now. Once I, Padma, you, the great Dharma king, and the great Bodhisattva abbot had been born as three low-caste boys. We were building the great stupa of Jarung Kashor. At that time, the princess had taken birth as an insect, which stung you on the neck. Brushing it off with your hand, you accidentally killed it. Because of the debt you incurred in taking that life, the insect was reborn as your daughter. If even the children of Dharma King Trisong Detsen, who was Manjushri in person, could be born to him in that way as a result of his past actions, what can one say about other beings? Okay, you may not believe in past lives, etc., so I always say prove their non-existence. Until then, you have to hold it at least as a hypothetical. So that's the rule in Buddhism. I don't believe in future lives. I don't believe. Well, prove that they don't exist. Come back with the proof, and that's it. I'll follow you. So that's how we handle things like this. At present, we are closely linked with our parents and our children. Patrul goes on. We feel great affection for them and have incredible aspirations for them. When they suffer or anything undesirable happens to them, we are more upset than we would if such things would happen to us personally. A mother worries more about the child than about herself. All this is simply the repayment of debts for the harm we have done each other in past lives. Ooh. I don't know. Of all the people who are now our enemies, there is not one who has not been our father or mother in the course of all our previous lives. Even now, the fact that we consider them to be against us does not necessarily mean that they are actually doing us any harm. There are some we think of as opponents who, from their side, do not see us in that way at all. Others might feel that they are our enemies, but are quite incapable of doing us any real harm. There are also people who at the moment seem to be harming us, but in the long term, what they are doing to us might bring us recognition and appreciation in this life, or make us turn to the Dharma and thus bring us much benefit and happiness. Yet others, if we can skillfully adapt to their characters and win them over with gentle words until we reach some agreement, might quite easily turn into friends. This echoes the 8 verses on training the mind. Big time. On the other hand, there are all those who we normally consider closest to us. Our children, for example, rather. But there are sons and daughters who have cheated or even murdered their parents. Read the papers, watch TV. Sometimes children side with people who have a dispute with their parents and join forces with them to quarrel with their own family and plunder their wealth. No. Even when we get along well with those who are dear to us, their sorrows and problems actually affect us even more strongly than our own difficulties. In order to help our friends, our children, and other relatives, we pile up great waves of negative actions which will sweep us into the hells in our next life. When we really want to practice the Dharma properly, they hold us back. Unable to give up our obsession with parents, children, and family, we keep putting Dharma practice until later, putting off Dharma practice until later, and so never find the time for it. In short, such people may harm us even more than our enemies. Yeah, attachment. That's why monks have said, those ordained people said, those who have left the home life, you become a homeless man. What is more, Patrol goes on, there is no guarantee that those we consider adversaries today will not be our children in future lives, or that our present friends will not be reborn as our enemies, and so on. It is only because we take these fleeting perceptions of, quote, friend and enemy, these categories, this is what he's getting at now, that's the point, as real, that we accumulate negative actions through attachment and hatred. Why do we hold on to this millstone which will drag us down to the lower realms? Make a firm decision, therefore, to see all infinite beings as your own parents and children. Then, like the great beings of the past, whose lives we can read about, consider all friends and enemies as the same. At least be neutral towards them. Do your best. Look long term, I guess the thing. So he goes on. First, toward all those you do not like at all, those who arouse anger and hatred, and you train your mind by various means so that the anger and hatred you feel for them no longer arise. You got to work at it. Okay? Think of them as you would of someone neutral who does you neither good nor harm. Then reflect that the immeasurable beings to whom you feel neutral have been your father and mother, sometimes during your past lives, throughout time without beginning. Meditate on this theme, training yourself until you feel the same love for them as you do for your present parents. You can do this. You can change the rock-hard mind because the mind's not inherently existent. All these attitudes we have can be changed, especially since they're built on a falsity. So, finally, meditate until you feel the same compassion toward all beings, not just your parents, whether you see them as friends, enemies, or in between, as you do for your own parents. Okay? Now, it is no substitute for boundless impartiality just to think of everybody, friends as enemies, as the same without any particular feeling of compassion, hatred, or whatever. This is mindless impartiality and brings neither harm nor benefit. The image given for truly boundless impartiality is a banquet given by a great sage. This is how the metaphor you could understand boundless impartiality. When the great sages of old offered feasts, they would invite everyone, high or low, powerful or weak, good or bad, exceptional or ordinary, without making any distinction whatsoever. Likewise, our attitude toward all beings throughout space should be a vast feeling of compassion encompassing them all equally. Train your mind until you reach such a state of boundless impartiality. Everybody's at the table. The big embrace, I used to say, the big embrace. Everyone. You're out on the street, you can be in his class. I mean, no filling out the forms and checking you out, etc. So we'll leave it at that because we have to do our job now. On the other side, the wisdom side of the path, the method and wisdom side, conjoined. We left on page, where do we leave? We left on page 202 of Steps on the Path to Enlightenment, Geshe Sopa's volume 5, commenting on this very chapter, which he's pulling apart. We're going to run into now is a little low rig, mind and mental factors, stuff like that. We were talking about generic image in the last class. We talked, why do people go on about generic image, blah, 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 so what? Because you first understand emptiness by creating this generic image, meaning generality, whatever you want to call it, the Dunchi in Tibetan. And then that generic image gets sharper and sharper and sharper till it breaks and becomes the actual insight. So it's very important to understand the mechanism of the mind in creating this generic image or meaning generality, whatever gets you up and down, jumping, fine. So that's why it is important. That's how we do it. No one hits you with a stick and all of a sudden, that's it, I'm gone. Not here anyway. Maybe there's a place. Let me know. I'll be there. As long as it's not too hard. So, middle of page 202. Let us look more closely at the conceptual image tree. So, for instance, we see a tree, in the next nanosecond, the mind creates the idea of the tree, and that's what gets filed away. Now, the actual visual uh, information gathered from the sense consciousness is mixed, and we don't realize it, with the um, mental image that we create. What's the word for them? Put them together. And there's a better word for that, but I'll think of it in another 30 years. So anyway, that's the idea. Let us look a little more closely at the conceptual image tree, middle of page 202. If we say or think tree, try it right now. A mental image arises that encompasses all particular trees. Yeah, looking at the one on the corner. So at first we were introduced to individual trees through direct sense perception. Otherwise we would know what the word tree was. But we have to first be introduced to it through direct sense perception. According to the lower schools, as well as Bhava Viveka, who was Svatantrika, Svatantrika. According to the lower schools, as well as Bhava Viveka, the individual characteristics of an object appear directly to the sense consciousness perceiving it. We see a tree, a big tree, a deciduous tree, and so on. All the information is right there in the visual impact, right? We perceive each characteristic directly without mixing them up. Therefore, according to those systems, a sense consciousness is unmistaken. It sees things as they are, and what it sees is true. Hold on, don't get excited. Once we have been introduced to individual trees by means of our visual consciousness, the mind creates a mental image of treeness. All right, I know what trees are. Yeah, I'm going to order a few. Which is a generality. Not a specific one that you see, it's a generality. That conceptual image of treeness encompasses all trees in your mind. Any individual tree can be placed under the general conceptual image tree. The particular and the general are thus brought together within thought. The particular and the general are brought together within thought. Good psychology here. So maintain. Remember, the general image is very important for understanding of things, the generality. A sense consciousness does not perceive any conceptual image or generality. No. When our visual consciousness perceives a tree, it directly sees the color, the shape, the various attributes of a particular tree. I don't like that one, let's get this one, etc. Geshe Sopa continues. Our visual consciousness also sees other qualities of the individual tree, such as impermanence, production, and so on. Well, our yogic perception, we see it, but we don't register it. What is it? Seen but not ascertained, something like that. According to the Sotantrika and Yogacara schools, that's the second and the third up the rung, because sense consciousness functions through the power of the object, they function through the power of the object, in that it engages its object positively. It directly perceives its object without making any distinction between the object's various characteristics. Dharmakirti says, and everyone listens when Dharmakirti says something, therefore, by seeing a thing, all its qualities are seen. Well, that's not too hard, that's all right. So hard about Dharmakirti. Hang around. Read the second chapter. Page 203, Geshe Sopa goes on while I check the time, boys and girls. The first chapter of Dharmakirti's commentary on valid cognition, or the Pravana Vartika, I hope I pronounced it right, discusses at length how thoughts are indirect and mistaken. So if you have patience and time, you should take up that topic. It's very interesting. Certain people with a certain intellectual bent will enjoy it. I think John Donne did a very nice book on it. I forgot the title, but it's in the back over here in the bookcase. But look it up. Thoughts do not perceive things directly. Okay? There is no external treeness that encompasses all trees. So we're sorting out now what thought does and what visual does. One of the things they're doing, accomplishing a lot at once here. It is the mental consciousness that conceives of abstract things, such as a generality or a particularity, by means of conceptual images. It is thought, arising on the basis of a conceptual image, not the direct perceptual image, that understands the various attributes one by one. For example, because it sorts out, for example, The visual consciousness sees all the attributes of the tree at once, tall, green, impermanent, and so on. Then thought understands each quality of the tree individually. Yes, now that's kind of old. This is a good one. That's thought individually. It does not understand all these attributes simultaneously. Thought has to go step by step. Thought engages the object by means of elimination. Comprehension of a thing arises by mentally clearing away other phenomena. You think pot, everything that's not a pot. You think horse, everything that's not a horse. That's how the mind, conceptual mind works. By means, thought engages the object by means of elimination. Comprehension of a thing arises by mentally clearing away all other phenomena. The affirmation, this happens fast, so we never stop and think, oh, you're getting an idea of what's going on in your mind. Oh, how dare they? Yes. The Geshe Sopa goes on, the affirmation of one thing negates another. The negation of one thing affirms another. If you think tall, you're negating non-tall or short. Likewise, on the basis of having a conceptual image of what is to be green and non-green, you can think this is green. Okay? Conceptual awareness does this with each quality one by one. It does not recognize all the qualities together because it does not function through the power of the object, whereas a sense consciousness does. Functions through the power of the object. File that away. You're going to need it. It functions through the power of our own conceptual images. So here's where a lot of mistakes occur. And here's where you can be fooled and stuff. Think about it. So you will, when you think of things and see things, you'll see things corrupted by your own prejudices because you think about it. Well, just fool around with the idea. It's very interesting. You'll never be bored. While you're waiting for the train at night, think about these things. But watch who's behind you. Anyway, the same applies to words. Words? Yes. Thought and language engage the object in the same way because words come from thoughts. So fully understand how thoughts are different from sense input, and then now you start to think about words and how they're used. Very interesting. The direct object of thought is a conceptual image through which it recognizes the qualities of the object. A word expressing that very thought also has that very conceptual image as its direct object. When we say this is a tree or that is a pot, the words follow from the object engaged by thought. That's a Maserati, that's a Ferrari, and stuff like that. We can do that if you like thinking about those things. Although, Geshe continues, although our sense consciousness perceives green, tall, leafy, impermanent, product, and so on simultaneously, when we talk about these attributes, we mention them one by one. We say, it is green, then we may add, it is tall, and so on. When we say tall, we are not indicating green. We are not saying anything more than tall. You see how it dissects things and limits things? And don't remember, words come from concepts. You get to understand conceptuality more this way. This Geshe Sopa is a kind-hearted genius, and the one who translated for him had her lotus feet. I don't know, not that bad. Had her stiletto heels. No, let's go. Don't go there. Continuing on page 203, the last paragraph. All thoughts are mistaken with regard to their appearing object, yet they are not all distorted or wrong. Yes. As has been discussed, we must make a distinction between a mistaken consciousness and a wrong or distorted consciousness. A mistake, and he's going to flesh it out. A mistaken consciousness is mistaken with regard to its appearing object. A wrong or distorted consciousness is mistaken with regard to its main or held object. You understand it wrongly. Oh, there's water. No, somebody else says, the water, play of light on the sand, that's a mirage. Oh yeah, you're right. That's simple, that's all. Yeah? Some thoughts are correct with regard to how they understood their main object, whereas other thoughts are mistaken with regard to how they understand their main object. Some are correct, some are incorrect. In the latter case, both how the object appears and how it is held or understood are completely wrong. So, you saw a mirage and you understand it as water. Well, no, the appearance was wrong and the understanding was wrong. Okay? Appearing object and held object, wrong. Totally wrong. Get out. Page 204. I'm so nervous about time. I don't know why. Maybe an hourglass in a previous life. Who knows? 204, first paragraph. According to the Prasangika system, the highest, quote, highest, the final presentation, Buddha's final presentation. According to the Prasangika system, the thought that holds the aggregates to be impermanent is mistaken with regard to its appearing object because the aggregates appear to exist inherently. That's a further error, but only in the Prasangika school. When they understand everything inherently existent, they have a special definition also of inherent existence. So you'll hear it, there's inherently existent in all the other schools. They don't mean what the consequence or the Prasangika school means by it. So according to the Prasangika system, the thought that holds the aggregates to be impermanent is mistaken with regard to its appearing object because the aggregates appear to exist inherently. There's the start of trouble. But its way of holding its object, mainly holding the aggregates to be impermanent, cannot be negated by valid knowledge, no. And basic things. So therefore, this thought is not mistaken with regard to its main object, so it is said to be correct. According to the Prasangika system, all sentient beings' sense consciousness are mistaken because their objects appear to exist inherently. Okay. So what? We can still function, okay? But we're, getting serious now. An appearance of the main object is mixed with an appearance of inherent existence. Now, we're not even aware of this right now, but we will be as we learn what inherent existence is, and so forth, etc., and so forth. However, when there is nothing else with regard to which they are mistaken, they are simply said to be mistaken, not wrong. So, you're right, that's the Empire State Building. You're wrong, you think it's inherently existent, but you're right, the Empire State, and then we'll meet there tomorrow and have lunch, all right? Very nice. So here, to be mistaken means to be incorrect regarding the appearing object. The visual consciousness that perceives blue is mistaken. Why? Because blue appears to be inherently existent. However, it is not wrong or distorted consciousness because it is not mistaken regarding its main object, blue. Get me a blue pair of pants. Oh yeah, you thought they were inherently existent, but so what? You still got the blue thing. Get me the blue paint. Here's the blue paint. Thank you so much. You get the idea? I know it's difficult. Not that difficult. Spend some time. This gets you out of jail. And it's free. The primary object is correctly held to be blue. The visual consciousness that apprehends it is valid. Unless you're seeing snow as blue because something wrong with your eyes or something. Leave that aside. So, middle paragraph 204. Not all Buddhist schools agree. Of course not. According to the lower schools, valid sense consciousnesses are not mistaken. The Sotantrikas, the Sutra school and below, say that objects exist as they are perceived. They exist as they're perceived. In their opinion, when we see blue, there's no aspect regarding that which that visual consciousness is mistaken. No. Why? The object appears to exist inherently, but according to the lower schools, things do exist inherently. Oh, that's why they say there's nothing wrong. Yeah. Oh boy. Therefore, in their view, this is a completely unmistaken appearance. In their view. Fine. Remember, these are schools taught by the Buddha deliberately to get people used to thinking these ideas until they bring them up to the higher, subtler view. Don't knock them, because then you incur the fault of denigrating the Dharma. We don't want to do that. We have enough trouble as it is. Next to the last paragraph on the page, 204. The Yogacaras, the mind-only school, agree with the Prasangikas that sense consciousness are mistaken, but their reasoning is different. You guessed it. You know what it is. When we see blue, we see it as an external object. But according to the mind-only school, the Yogacara system, all sense consciousnesses are mistaken regarding this appearance of subject-object duality. Although a visual consciousness perceiving blue is mistaken with regard to the appearance of an external object, it is a valid consciousness because the primary object held by visual consciousness is blue, not the appearance of duality. They think everything is a picture projected by the mind, like in a dream. All the activities that go on, they're all coming from your mind. And that's what that school thinks. Again, taught by the Buddha as a skillful means. Therefore, it is valid knowledge because it is not mistaken with regard to the principle held objects. Again, give me a blue can of paint. Okay? Last paragraph. From the perspective, all sense consciousness, except for those of a Buddha, are alike in being mistaken with regard to the appearance of inherent existence. Okay, he's just reinforcing the thought. They are differentiated in terms of being correct or distorted conventionalities, based on whether a thing corresponds to the appearance exists from the point of view of ordinary beings. That is not a man, that's a scarecrow. Oh, I see, a scarecrow rather. Aha. Get a pair of glasses, will you? Things like that. That's all. It's very simple. For example, a visual consciousness to which a reflection of a face appears as a real face is a distorted conventionality because the main object, what is held to be a real face, does not exist from the point of view of ordinary beings. No, it's not a face. It's an image in the mirror. Get at it. Ordinary people do not accept the reflection of a face to be a real face. A distorted conventionality can be refuted by conventional valid knowledge, every way, common sense of the world. We'll do one more paragraph. It's page 205. For example, the held object of the thought grasping the aggregates to be permanent aggregates. I'm always around. This is it. I'm going to live forever. Yeah. Does not exist conventionally, and therefore can be negated by valid knowledge. No, you may think that, but it doesn't exist even conventionally. Distorted conceptual consciousness is holding impermanent things as permanent, impure things as pure, selfless things as having a self, and things in the nature of suffering as being pleasant are all refuted by means of negating their held objects. He's getting the message in, learning two things at once here. The held object of these thoughts do not exist conventionally. Things are not permanent, they are impermanent. However, the held objects of the correct ways of thinking do exist conventionally and cannot be negated by valid reasoning. The impermanent things exist as impermanent. That's it. Suffering natures exist as suffering. Impure things exist as impure. You just got to look into them. You don't need a special mind to do that. And selfless things exist as selfless. Well, there you need a little bit of a special mind. That is the difference on the conventional side. So we'll stop it there because we have to do the prayers and stuff. But this is, it's necessary and very, very helpful. If you take some time and examine these ideas, there's other books that mention all of these. Very well worth the time. And it trains the mind while you're doing it. You'll start to use your mind in this way. Other side effects occur that are all positive. There's less obsession with this or that, and da-da-da. Calmness, because the basic confusion about reality is starting to go away. So, for whom will we pray? Let me check. You being one. Bulla Bulla, let's see, who's here? Namaste, namaste, y'all. It must be Mickey Haley from the South. Namaste, y'all. Anyway, I don't see anyone's name. There may be, if I miss somebody, there's endless people to pray for who are suffering, and if we spend a little time and think of it. And when Patrul Rinpoche was, when you think of suffering beings, for instance, a person being led to torture and execution, think that you're there. Boom. We'll have more to say about it in a few weeks coming. Sutra of the Recollection of the Noble Three Jewels. I prostrate to the Omniscient One. Thus the Buddha, Bhagavad, Tathagata, Arahat, Samyak Sang Buddha, the learned and virtuous one, the Sugata, the knower of the world, the charioteer and tamer of beings, the unsurpassable one, the teacher of devas and humans is the Buddha Bhagavat. The Tathagata is in accord with all merit. He does not waste the roots of virtue. He is completely ornamented with all patience. He is the basis of the treasures of merit. He is adorned with the minor marks. He blossoms with the flowers of the major marks. His activity is timely and appropriate. Seeing him, he is without disharmony. He brings true joy to those who long with faith. His knowledge cannot be overpowered. His strength cannot be challenged. He is the teacher of all sentient beings. He is the father of bodhisattvas. He is the king of noble ones. He is the guide of those who journey to the city of nirvana. He possesses immeasurable wisdom. He possesses inconceivable confidence. His speech is completely pure. His melody is pleasing. One never has enough of seeing him. His form is incomparable. He's not stained by the realm of desire. He's not stained by the realm of form. He's not affected by the formless realm. He is completely liberated from suffering. He is completely and utterly liberated from the skandhas. He is not possessed with dhatus. His ayatanas are controlled. He has completely cut the knots. He is completely liberated from extreme torment. He is liberated from craving. He has crossed over the river. He is perfected in all the wisdoms. He abides in the wisdom of the Buddha Bhagavats who arise in the past, present, and future. He does not abide in nirvana. He abides in the ultimate perfection. He dwells on the bhumi where he sees all sentient beings. All these are the perfect virtues of the greatness of the Buddha Bhagavat. The holy Dharma is good at the beginning, good in the middle, and good at the end. Its meaning is excellent. Its words are excellent. It is uncorrupted. It is completely perfect and completely pure. It completely purifies. The Bhagavat teaches the Dharma well. It brings complete vision. It is free from sickness. It is always timely. It directs one further. Seeing it fulfills one's purpose. It brings discriminating insight for the wise. The Dharma, which is taught by the Bhagavat, is revealed properly in the Vinaya. It is renunciation. It causes one to arrive at perfect enlightenment. It is without contradiction. It is pithy. It is trustworthy and puts an end to the journey. As for the Sangha, the great Yana, they enter completely, they enter insightfully, they enter straightforwardly, they enter harmoniously. They are worthy of veneration with joined palms. They are worthy of receiving prostration. They are a field of glorious merit. They are completely capable of receiving all gifts. They are an object of generosity. They are a great object of complete generosity. The protector who possesses great kindness, the omniscient teacher, the basis of oceans of merit and virtue, I prostrate to the Tathagata. Pure, the cause of freedom from passion, virtuous, liberating from the lower realms. This alone is the supreme, ultimate truth. I prostrate to the Dharma, which is peace. Having been liberated, they show the path to liberation. They are fully dedicated to the disciplines. They are a holy field of merit and possess virtue. I prostrate to the Sangha. I prostrate to the Buddha, the leader. I prostrate to the Dharma, the protector. I prostrate to the Sangha, the community. I prostrate respectfully and always to these three. The Buddha's virtues are inconceivable. The Dharma's virtues are inconceivable. The Sangha's virtues are inconceivable. Having faith in these inconceivables, therefore, the fruitions are inconceivable. May they be born in a completely pure realm. So now, as a further cause of the quick return of Rato Chunglen Rinpoche's Holiness is recommended that we say a prayer for the flowing stream of J. Tsong-kha-pa's teachings, which is what Rato Chunglen Rinpoche was all about. On the website, of course. Though he's the father producer of all conquerors, as a conqueror's son, he produced the thought of upholding the conqueror's Dharma in infinite worlds. Through this truth may the conqueror Losang's teachings flourish. When of yore in the presence of Buddha Indra he made his vow, the conqueror and his offspring praised his powerful courage. Through this truth may the conqueror Losang's teachings flourish. That the lineage of pure view and conduct might spread, he offered a white crystal rosary to the sage, who gave him a conch and prophesied. Through this truth may the conqueror Losang's teachings flourish. His pure view free of eternity or destruction, his pure meditation cleansed of dark fading and fog, his pure conduct practiced according to the conqueror's orders, may the conqueror Losang's teachings flourish. Learned, since he extensively sought out learning. Reverend, rightly applying it to himself. Good, dedicating all for beings and the doctrine, may the conqueror Losang's teachings flourish. Through being sure that all scriptures, definitive and interpretive, were without contradiction, advice for one person's practice, he stopped all misconduct. May the conqueror Losang's teachings flourish. Listening to explanation of the three Pitakas, realized teachings, practice of the three trainings, his skilled and accomplished life story is amazing. May the conqueror Losang's teachings flourish. Outwardly calmed and subdued by the hearer's conduct, inwardly trusting in the two stages practice, he relied without clash the good paths of Sutra and Tantra. May the conqueror Losang's teachings flourish. Combining voidness explained as the causal vehicle with great bliss, achieved by method the effect vehicle. Heart essence of 80,000 Dharma bundles, may the conqueror Losang's teachings flourish. By the power of the ocean of oath-bound doctrine protectors, like the main guardians of three beings' paths, the quick-acting Lord, Vaishravana, Karma Yama, may the conqueror Losang's teachings flourish. And sure, by the lasting of glorious gurus' lives, by the earth being full of good, learned, reverent holders of the teaching, and by the increase of power of its patrons, may the conqueror Losang's teachings flourish. So now we have 8 verses on training the mind. With the determination to accomplish the highest welfare of all sentient beings who surpass even a wish-granting jewel, I will learn to hold them supremely dear. Whenever I associate with others, I will learn to think of myself as the lowest amongst all, and respectfully hold others to be supreme from the very depths of my heart. In all actions, I will learn to search into my mind, and as soon as a disturbing emotion arises, endangering myself and others, I will firmly face and avert it. I will learn to cherish ill-natured beings and those oppressed by strong misdeeds and sufferings, as if I had found a precious treasure difficult to find. When others out of jealousy treat me badly with abuse, slander, and so on, I will learn to take all loss and offer the victory to them. When the one whom I benefited with great hope unreasonably hurts me very badly, I will learn to view that person as an excellent spiritual guide. In short, I will learn to offer to everyone without exception all help and happiness directly and indirectly, and respectfully take upon myself all harm and suffering of my mothers. I will learn to keep all these practices undefiled by the stains of the 8 worldly concerns, and by understanding all phenomena like illusions. Be released from the bondage of attachment. So our next class, it's the end of tonight's presentation, our next class will be Wednesday night, the 10th. It will be at the parsonage. This is not the parsonage, this is my house in West Orange. The parsonage is in South Orange. Look on the website for the directions. All are welcome. It's live. And we'll continue with Geshe Sopa's presentation. We'll continue with Zapatro Rinpoche. I think you like it. Not, just text me and tell me it's horrible and we'll do something else. All right? No problem. Not a problem. We're not attached. Anyway, thank you so much for your kind, patient listening. Big love to all of you.